Good afternoon and welcome to the second part of our Crowdfund Birmingham online learning series. My name's Sammy Morja. I'm broadcasting live today from Crowdfunder HQ. You'll have to excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cold, so if you see a tissue appear at any point, please do ignore me and carry on. We're also really lucky today to be joined by Ben from the Bridge Birmingham, who recently this summer ran a successful crowdfund and also received match funding from Birmingham City Council. So we're going to be talking to Ben over the next half an hour about his experience and what he learned as he was going through the process. So first up, Ben, would you be able to give us a little bit of a roundup as to what the Bridge is all about and what it was you were looking to achieve with Crowdfunder?
Yeah, so the Bridge is an addiction recovery project. We have 3 houses, so we're quite small, and we work with men and women to help them to get over drug and alcohol addictions, or to, I suppose, to be in recovery from that. So with Crowdfunder, I think our key aims were, we basically have a very loyal supporter base, so we wanted to obviously kind of gain income from and use Crowdfund as a platform to gain income, but also to sort of maximise the income that we did get in. So we wanted to the match funding from Birmingham City Council was a kind of big factor, and also the communication and publicity that we'd get through the kind of online platform that Crowdfunder is was a big appeal. So we don't do many kind of big supporter focused campaigns. We do kind of one big one a year, so it was a kind of good way to kind of get our message out, make sure people knew who we were, and that was it in the main, really. So yeah, it was a lot of fun and hard work.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ben. I think that's a really good roundup. So what we're going to be focusing on today is specifically all about creating the perfect project page. And obviously you guys at the Bridge had a really great project page, so we're going to be looking at that as we go through the session today. So in the last session, we were really focusing on the planning stage, so getting your team together, thinking about finding your crowd, nurturing that crowd. And in our next session, we're going to be looking at actually running your project, so all the promotional bits and bobs as well. Specifically creating your project. Now, I will again point out that we do have 3 guides which go along with each of these sessions, which are absolutely the best place to start if you're thinking about crowdfunding. You can download them, you can print them off, or you can actually just type straight into them. They're editable PDFs. And there's a lot more advice than what we're going to cover today in this session, particularly around things like setting a target or making a video, which we're not going to cover in any great depth today. So if you're looking for those kind of bits and bobs, you can find that there. And what is also right at the start of the guides is this page full of examples. Now, looking at other people's projects is one of the best ways to learn about crowdfunding, looking at how they presented their story, what they did for their video, what kind of rewards they offered, how they set their target. And you can see just by looking at someone's page, almost a sort of record of what happened with their crowdfunding project. So do definitely make sure you check out some of those examples. So going back over to you now, Ben, what do you think is the most important thing to keep in mind when you're creating your project page on Crowdfunder?
So I think for me and for us, I think it's keeping in mind head and heart. So people need to be convinced kind of logically that it's a good idea to fund you, and also kind of you also want to hit their heart and kind of really kind of tug at some heartstrings and you know, appeal to their kind of emotions, because ultimately people are an emotional kind of subject. So so I think the key thing was that the information we got across was clear, and it was giving people what they would need to be convinced to that it was a good project to fund and to get behind, but also kind of communicating in really kind of language that was passionate and kind of emotive in a good way. I think that was really key, and then I just think the visual aspect is just really important. So anything you're doing online, people really kind of respond to the visuals, so your photos and graphics and video and that kind of stuff, they can be really key. So I think it's really good to have something that looks quite visual and quite attractive. So that for me seems to be the most sort of important thing to make sure that we try to cover in our project page.
Awesome. I think that's really good advice. So what we're going to do now, Ben, is actually go through some of the text on your project page and have a look at how you presented your story. So how do you tell the story of the Bridge Birmingham? And we're going to focus on these 3 key questions, which we talk about in the guide, which are the 3 things we want to make sure that you're getting across. Now, of course, for every project, there's going to be other things that are going to be really important for your project, but these 3 are very much at the core of every crowdfunding project. So first up, looking at what are you trying to achieve? This is something that everyone needs to tackle head on right at the start when you're presenting your story. And I've just highlighted here in bold some of the key things that really jumped out to me when I was reading about the story. For example, just the fact that they start with over 7 years, that immediately gives the project credibility to me. These are people who know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long time. They're legit. They're the real deal, and they know kind of what the task at hand is. And actually, showing in the rest of that sentence that actually they're already having successes. They've already been doing this for 7 years, and they've already been helping men and women beat addiction. So it's not just kind of a dream, something that they're looking to achieve. They're already achieving it, which for me was really, really strong. As we look into that second section, the bit that jumped out again right at the start, it's really clear exactly what money they need and what it is that they're going to do with it. And as they go through and explain in a little bit more depth throughout the rest of that paragraph, what exactly does a recovery program involve, and what is it that they need to purchase? What's the money going to be used for? I really like that they use those specific terms, it being an innovative new community program. So I know that although they've been doing this for 7 years and they really do know what they're doing and they're already achieving things, they're not resting on their laurels. They're doing things differently, and they're looking at new ways that they continue to evolve and progress, which I think is a really great thing to see. Now, as we come on to the second question, so what makes your project great? And we can swap this word great out for many different words depending on your project. What makes it unique? What makes it interesting? What makes it exciting? What makes it innovative? But particularly for this project, for the Bridge, because of the nature of what it is that they're talking about, it's really a case of offering up what the problem is and presenting a solution. And you can see I've just picked out these 2 bits which do that really well. So I've highlighted a couple of key terms. So they talk about people feeling unsafe, that by talking about how they're giving people somewhere safe and comfortable to live. So those 2, you can literally pair them up together, presenting this is a problem, we know this is a problem, and this is how we're addressing it. And that's a really great way to think about how you tell your story, about what makes it so strong, is really addressing the problem. Okay. And finally, and we touched on this a little bit just a moment ago, but who you are and what's your experience. And you'll be amazed when you look through various projects and the amount of people that just almost forget to include that bit. They forget that people don't know who they are. Perhaps people within their inner network might, but people outside of that aren't going to be as familiar. And it's really important for 2 reasons to focus on this. First of all, to really help with that credibility, which is what we mentioned a moment ago, to show people that you are the right people for the job, that you know what you're doing, you've got the experience, you're going to be able to deliver this. And also, it really helps to make the project much more personable, something that people can relate to. Often when we're talking about an organisation as an organisation, it becomes this kind of faceless body that are, you know, doing these things, but they kind of don't really have a name or a face or a personality necessarily. So actually what crowdfunding gives you the opportunity to do is to actually connect with those supporters on a very personal basis, to actually have a kind of two-way exchange with them. So I think what you know, the Bridge have done really well here is to talk about them as people, as human beings, you know, being a group of people who care a lot about Birmingham, and talking about the history of how it all came together, you know, back in 1999, which seems like a distant memory to most of us. So I think that's a quick summary as to what those guys really focused on. Now, what I wanted to show just now is that actually those last 3 slides have been quite hard going for anyone tuning in. And that's because there's no visual content on them. So I've done that very much on purpose to show you actually firsthand what it's like being presented with just a block of text without anything else. Visual texture is so important, and Ben mentioned that earlier. Showing rather than just telling. Presenting testimonials, you know, other voices, putting in headings, infographics, so that it's not just a big ream of text. In, you know, 2017 and beyond, that's just not good enough anymore. People expect more than just to be told a story as text. They expect it to be visual and engaging. So Ben, obviously you guys did a really good job of presenting your project page. Other than the written text, what else did you guys include to make it engaging?
So we used a bit of a combination of different things. It was interesting for us because we have to be careful with photos of former residents and things like that when we're promoting. So we tried to find different types of visual representations. So we used some photos that kind of were things that maybe represented kind of a bit about what we were trying to do. So we had some sort of little steps and pathway type of images, but just things that were kind of colourful, that would kind of represent what we do. We also had some quotes that we tried to sort of make a bit more, we made a bit more bold on the page, used it as a bit of a visual. We used some infographic type of things. I didn't go to town on that or employ a graphic designer, just sort of did it up in a sort of Microsoft type of program. And obviously we had a video as well, which a friend of ours really kindly helped us with. But again, just having something there that was slightly different, that told the story in a different way, was a really helpful thing. I think just keeping people engaged with the page and with the information. So they were the main things that we did, basically. Yeah.
Fantastic. So what we're going to come on to now is just going to talk about rewards just a little bit. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that rewards are not essential. I don't think you guys at the Bridge actually used rewards, did you?
No, we didn't know.
No, and I think, again, we were talking about this in our first session, about thinking about what people's motivation might be for supporting your project. And for the guys at the Bridge, they identified that for their crowd, the motivation was very much going to be because people wanted to support it, because they thought it was worthwhile and it was going to do some good in the world. But what we do find with rewards is that they're a great way to increase that engagement. So because it kind of takes the relationship past the closing date of the crowdfund, because you then deliver the rewards, it's a good way to kind of to keep that engagement and keep that crowd on board in the future. We also do find that if you have rewards, the average amount that people pledge does increase as well. But as I say, not essential. It totally depends on what you're doing. So we've identified here what are the 4 main types of rewards. And of course, there's always going to be things outside of these 4. We always see things all the time where people are doing something that we've never seen before. We've got products and services, which is the kind of physical stuff. Experiences and events, where you invite people along to do something. Sponsorship, which can take many different forms, perhaps corporate sponsorship, or perhaps just from individuals. And finally, thank yous in many, many different guises, different ways of showing that appreciation. So we're just going to look at a few examples of each of those different types now, so we have a really clear idea about what we mean by rewards. And I will mention that with rewards, it's not a shop when you're doing your crowdfund. You don't have to send your reward the day after someone pledges. In fact, don't send them the day someone pledges. You should wait until your crowdfunder project finishes and you've collected all the money, and then you can send out your rewards when you have all of that information to do that. So looking at that first group then, thinking about products and services. So it doesn't have to be expensive again. Rewards should be good value for money, as well as being something worthwhile that people will look forward to receiving. So we've got things like, again, a copy of a pamphlet, which they've added, a handwritten message in there to make it a little bit exclusive and a little bit different. A really great reward, which always goes down well on crowdfunding is food and drink rewards. So people love to receive little tasty treats in return for a pledge. So these guys here, £10 for some handmade Jamaican sweets, great, and they can post them out to you. Experiences and events is actually my favourite group, my favourite category. If you look at all the projects that I've pledged on, which unfortunately is public on Crowdfunder, so you can see all my guilty pleasures, the experiences events is absolutely one of my favourites. I love to go along and do stuff, things that I wouldn't ordinarily even know about, never mind have an opportunity to get involved with. So things that give people an opportunity to do something, again, a little bit different. So if you're, running a restaurant or a cafe, you wouldn't normally be offering, a cooking class or something like that. But there's no reason why you can't do that as something a bit out of the ordinary as part of your crowdfund. So it can be something that you don't normally do and is just exclusive and unique to your project. Again, you can play around with the pricing. We want it to be something that's good value for money, but of course is going to be worthwhile for you as well. So a couple of examples here of different experiences and events and things that you might want to do. Sponsorship. So again, sponsorship can take so many different forms that it's really down to you kind of as a project to think about what opportunities you might have for sponsorship. So we see people offering up plaques, or you can have your name on a wall or on a brick, or you can name a room or a chair or even a bar stool I've seen. Or you can sort of be a sponsor on a website or on a physical something. Recently called Batdog, which was a book, and as part of the sponsorship I actually received a copy of the book, but I also had my name printed in the back of the book as someone who had sponsored it and helped to make the project happen. So that's a great double whammy, if you like, where they were kind of offering both of those things as a reward. And finally, thank yous. It doesn't need to be anything physical and that you have to post. It can just be a way of showing your appreciation, whether that's, a poem, a postcard, a letter, or even just, a tweet or an email. Thank yous can work really well, particularly if you know that your crowd are really supporting you because they just believe in what you're doing. And we can see down there in the bottom left-hand corner that Just Donate box will actually be appearing on every single project on Crowdfunder. So even if you add rewards, people will still be given the option to just donate, and that can be right the way down from £1. £1 is the minimum amount people can donate. So regardless of whether you add rewards or not, that donation option will always be there. This is the big question. What would be your one top piece of advice for someone who's about to start creating a project page on Crowdfunder?
Yeah, it's hard to condense it into one thing, but I'll try. I think giving yourself time and following the guides that Crowdfunder have, really, really helpful, really, really key, and also getting feedback. So that's three things, but yeah, basically give yourself time to prepare, follow the guides, and get feedback, because that's just really helpful. It's better to kind of get it right than to just kind of go all guns blazing without kind of just taking the time to really kind of nail it. And I think that's really key. So that would be my advice to anyone.
Perfect. I'll let you off as saying that's three. I think that's one big piece of advice. So that's perfect. So before our next session, there's three things that I would absolutely advise you to get going on for your own crowdfund. So have a go at starting to draft your project description. Don't worry about getting it perfect first time. No one can see it. It's not public. Just start having a go. Do start brainstorming some reward ideas. It's often a good idea to sit down with a few people and see what ideas you can come up with and then refine them from there. And do calculate your target and start to think about how much it is that you need to make this happen. It's not something which we focused on in this webinar, but there's lots of advice in that guide. So again, if you haven't already downloaded it, do get on, download it and have a look at how you can calculate your target. If you do have any questions at all, you can get in touch with us. We're here and ready and waiting to help. It's support@crowdfunder.co.uk. You can pop us an email and someone from the team will be back in touch. And our next session is going to be on Thursday, 12th of October. That's in a couple of weeks' time, and it's again going to be at 12 p.m. We're really going to focus in on what are the key channels for driving pledges to your project. So specifically around things like Facebook, which we know is one of the absolute biggest drivers of support on Crowdfunder. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how to get off to a good start, what kind of strategy to use when you're communicating with people, and how to use those tools in the most efficient and effective way, definitely make sure you come along next week. So thank you so much, Ben, for joining us. Your advice has been amazing, and I do hope I'll see you all next time. Thanks so much. Bye.